We ended our last video talking about using this range function to get a list of numbers in some sequence, right? And there's different ways to run that. You can actually even skip numbers by providing this step in our function call. You can tell it where to start and where to end, you know. One common way to use range is to iterate over a list by the list's length. And using range will iterate based on the index of the item rather than by just the item itself. I know that sounds like an abstract definition, so let's demonstrate it. So right here in this loop, but we're doing this again. We're saying, you know, we're creating this temporary variable. We could actually call this name. For each name in the list of names, we want to print out, right? So it's going to be a sequence of John through Sue, and there's 5 items. There's a function in Python that can get us the length of a list. So here's this list, this Python list. It's a data structure that we created, and we want to get the length of it. It's telling us that there are 5 items in there, right? So I can use range to say, okay, create a list of 5 things, and then iterate over, and then create this variable, and I can use the index here to get the item that I want. Let me just demonstrate this. I can actually call names and use square bracket notation. I can hit the square bracket and I can get name 4 and run that, and it's going to be Sue, right? Because it's a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've actually gotten this name using its index. What do you think index 0 is going to be? The 0 index is going to be John. Right, so that's what we're doing down here. We're saying names.i, and if I run this as it is, it's going to do the same thing that this for loop did. Only this for loop is much simpler, isn't it? Right? So why would we ever use this? Well, remember that we can use this type of syntax to choose which name we get or which order we get the name in, and all it is that this right here represents just this middle number. Right? It represents, okay, we want to go up to 5, but we can tell it where to stop, and we can tell it what steps we want it to take. So let's say that we wanted to just get the last number. We would say, what would we say? We want it to start at 4, right? And put a comma there and run this again, and it's just going to get that last name. So now we're using this range function in order to select a specific index. Now there's other ways that we can do this. We're not really going to go into the detail on it, but we just wanted you to see a useful way to use this range function. Okay, our last subject here before we go to data structures and functions and files is to talk about these ternary expressions. So we can look at this if statement right here and see how this is set up. We're probably familiar with this, right? Well, there's an if and an else. Well, what a ternary statement does is it formats the way this works, right? So if we just look at this, just inspect it, we're saying that if b is greater than 3, here's b right here, then we want to print it's more. It's going to do the same thing if I change b to, let's see, if it's greater than 3, so I have to change this to a 2, right? And run it again, and now when I run this, it says, it's less. So what we're doing is we're actually, instead of precursing everything with the if statement, we are actually sandwiching the if statement between its result and the else result. So it would be healthy just to take a minute and really compare the syntax between this form of the if statement and the ternary form of the if statement, because sometimes these are useful. Now I'm going to bring up at this point that there are other simplified syntax. One is called the lambda functions, and another one is called comprehension functions. So I kind of think of these as being in the same family with ternary expressions, because they're sort of a reformatting or simplifying of more traditional syntax formats.